Hi, this is Andre, and thanks for checking out Synthisophy. Synthisophy is scientifically integrating the wisdoms of history, based on fact and truth, into our present culture. Let's take a look today at Chapter 28, Review and Thesis 4. As earlier discussed and summarized, we have the alt-right and illiberal-Left in our country, each with alternate neurorealities based on alternate truths and alternate facts. That's unreal. The following are conclusions presented in earlier chapters. Consider Chapter 20. We are very far from our genetic roots. Recall our 180 degrees of change in the last 10,000 years from the evolutionarily and genetically selected and now neurologically hardwired tribal instinct that was necessary for survival and resulted in the dominance of Homo sapiens in the time from 4 million to 10,000 years ago. 10,000 divided by 4 million is equal to 1/4 of 1%. In the last 1/4 of 1% of its time in existence, humanity has created a society that is 180 degrees different from the one it evolutionarily created in the earlier 99.75% of its human history. As a visual, picture this world population graph with its baseline extending 400 times its present length in that direction, which is about the length of a football field. Picture that in your head, and as can be seen, there's been a tremendous amount of change in a very short period of time, and right now we are very far from our genetic roots. Recall Chapter 23. Fantasy becomes reality. In the extraordinarily complex society of today, the instinctive cognitive bias, the resulting confirmation bias that generated the argumentative theory and the tribal ethos, that then led by extension to the warrior ethos, may all very well be present in the 100 billion neurons in your brain, helping to generate one's perception of reality, one's neuroreality. As proposed by Anderson in Fantasyland, that neuroreality may not reflect true reality. It's in our genes. Our perception of reality, our neuroreality, has been in our genes since the advent of Australopithecus and cognitive bias 4 million years ago, or perhaps even much earlier, to Homo habilis and confirmation bias 3 million years ago, to Homo erectus 2 million years ago, and argumentative theory, all the while generating the tribal ethos, resulting in the warrior ethos that led to Homo sapiens out of Africa 70,000 years ago to conquer the world. Recall Chapter 24, our current president. The neurorealities of Trump, as described, are quite far from actual reality. Consider earlier mentioned the neurorealities of Einstein and his theories of relativity, 1905. Charles Darwin and his theory of evolution, 1859. And in 1620, Francis Bacon's description of the scientific method of thinking and his statement of confirmation bias. These are key perceptions of reality as they really exist. They are truth, and they are real. Let's call their perceptions neureal. In these areas, Einstein, Darwin, and Bacon think neureally. Their neurorealities are examples of neurealism. As far as Trump and his perceptions of reality, as presented in Chapter 24, they are unneurial. Trump thinks unneurially, and his neuroreality is an example of unneurialism. Note in Chapter 25, the same under-realism exists on the left. The neurorealities of the illiberal left are also quite far from actual reality. Again, recall the neurorealities of Einstein, Darwin, and Bacon. These are key perceptions of reality as they really exist. They are truth. Their perceptions are neurreal. In these areas, Einstein, Darwin, and Bacon think neurreally. Their neurorealities are examples of neurrealism. As far as the illiberal left's perceptions of reality, as presented in chapter 25 by Powers in her book The Silencing, those perceptions are unreal. The illiberal left thinks unreally. Their neurorealities are examples of unrealism. So, in the extraordinarily complex society of today, the instinctive cognitive biases, the resulting confirmation bias, with argumentative theory, and the tribe mentality stoked by the warrior ethos, may very well be present in the 100 billion neurons in our brain, helping to generate someone's perception of reality, someone's neuroreality. And as proposed by Anderson in Fantasyland, as well as by Powers in The Silencing, expanded upon by myself, that neuroreality may not always reflect true reality. It may be unreal. It's in our genes. It's been in our genes for a very long time. Cognitive bias probably developing over the course of 200 million years of mammalian evolution, including Australopithecus. The confirmation bias in Homo habilis. To the tribal ethos and argumentative theory, where truth doesn't matter, winning the argument and gaining power does, in Homo erectus. All the while generating the tribal ethos, resulting in the warrior ethos, that led Homo sapiens out of Africa 70,000 years ago. I'd like to make a comment here about the unrealism of the alt-right and illiberal left just mentioned, as it relates to the discussion of religion in chapters 10 and 15, particularly Thesis 2, Religion. Note that religion in the United States has been on the decline for the past 50 years. Could this religious neurological void be filled with a zealous devotion to politics? Perhaps politics has taken the place of religion, particularly among the unreal alt-right and illiberal left. Recall the old adage, never talk about politics or religion? Which brings us to Thesis 4. Perhaps politics on the alt-right and illiberal left has become their religion. Remember chapter 26? Yin and Yang? So let's try and get away from illiberal left and alt-right polarization. Move towards the more rational center, integrating aspects of both yin and yang, so our society resembles more the functional tribe from whence we genetically and evolutionarily came. Now let's go to chapter 27, the upside down bell curve. Recall the normal bell curve. Recall among the politically engaged the upside down bell curve as it presents itself in 2017. If a bell curve is considered normal, why do we as a society among the politically engaged have an upside down bell curve? Is that abnormal? Why are we so polarized? The answer lies in the human brain and neurological evolution. It's in our genes. It's been in our genes for a very long time. As stated in Thesis 1, our genetically evolved and present cognitive, confirmation, tribal, and argumentative biases shape our polarized perceptions of the world around us, and our warrior ethos finds others of similar mind to battle the opposing party. Does it have to be this way? Can your human consciousness be aware of this predisposition and keep it in check, putting value in moderation, reason, and truth? Can your neuroreality be neurreal and not unreal? Ben Franklin addressed that question after the Constitutional Convention. He said, We've given you a republic, but can you keep it? Before we delve into Chapter 29 and address various political issues in the U.S., let's take a look at the opinion of Zeynep Tufekci. As she expressed in her article in the New York Times, dated March 2018, titled, YouTube, the Great Radicalizer. This article sums up quite well the impact of the digital revolution on society today and fits quite well with Thesis 1. Here are quotes from Tufekci's article. At one point during the 2016 presidential election campaign, I watched a bunch of videos of Donald Trump rallies on YouTube. I was writing an article about his appeal to his voter base and wanted to confirm a few quotations. Soon I noticed something peculiar. YouTube started to recommend and autoplay videos for me that featured white supremacist rants, Holocaust denials, and other disturbing content. Since I was not in the habit of watching extreme right-wing fare on YouTube, I was curious whether this was an exclusively right-wing phenomenon. So I created another YouTube account and started watching videos of Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders, letting YouTube's recommender algorithm take me wherever it would. Before long, I was being directed to videos of a leftist conspiratorial cast, including arguments about the existence of secret government agencies and allegations that the United States government was behind the attacks of September 11. As with the Trump videos, YouTube was recommending content that was more and more extreme than the mainstream political fare I had started with. Intrigued, I experimented with non-political topics. The same basic pattern emerged. Videos about vegetarianism led to videos about veganism. Videos about jogging led to videos about running ultramarathons. It seems as if you are never hardcore enough for YouTube's recommendation algorithm. It promotes, recommends, and disseminates videos in a manner that appears to constantly up the stakes. Given its billion or so users, YouTube may be one of the most powerful, radicalizing instruments of the 21st century. This is not because a cable of YouTube engineers is plotting to drive the world off a cliff. A more likely explanation has to do with the nexus of artificial intelligence and Google's business model. YouTube is owned by Google. For all its lofty rhetoric, Google is an advertising broker selling our attention to companies that will pay for it. The longer people stay on YouTube, the more money Google makes. What keeps people glued to YouTube? Its algorithm seems to have concluded that people are drawn to content that is more extreme than what they started with, or to incendiary content in general. What we are witnessing is the computational exploitation of a natural human desire to look behind the curtain, to dig deeper into something that engages us. As we click and click, we are carried along by the exciting sensation of uncovering more secrets and deeper truths. YouTube leads viewers down a rabbit hole of extremism, while Google racks up the ad sales. Human beings have many natural tendencies that need to be vigilantly monitored in the context of modern life. For example, a craving for fat, salt, and sugar, which served us well when food was scarce, can lead us astray in an environment in which fat, salt, and sugar are all too plentiful and heavily marketed to us. So too, our natural curiosity about the unknown can lead us astray on a website that leads us too much in the direction of lies, hoaxes, and misinformation. This situation is especially dangerous given how many people, especially young people, turn to YouTube for information. Google's cheap and sturdy Chromebook laptops, which now make up more than 50% of the pre-college laptop education market in the United States, typically comes loaded with ready access to YouTube. This state of affairs is unacceptable but not inevitable. There is no reason to let a company make so much money while potentially helping to radicalize billions of people, reaping the financial benefits while asking society to bear so many of the costs. End quote. So what can we do? Read chapter 29.